Hi, I'm going to show you how to create a DevOps project and then set up a DevOps pipeline for CI/CD continuous build and deployment. So the first thing we're going to do here is first set up a DevOps project within your Azure DevOps account. So here I'm going to just call it Flutter app because I'm going to create eventually a Flutter app that I'm going to deploy here. So I'm going to just say sample Flutter app. So here what I'm doing is just setting up a brand new project within DevOps Azure, and this will be the placeholder of where I'm going to put my project files for this project. So after I've created up the project, it shows me where I can create where I can set my Git remote server. And then the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tool called Cursor to create a brand new Flutter project. So here I'm in my directory called teacher user project. And what I'm going to do here is I already have my Flutter set up here on my computer. If you need the instructions on how to set up Flutter, there is a separate video I would put in my description about how to set up Flutter on your computer. So you type in Flutter, create sample app, and it's going to create a brand new project. Okay. And then here, I then go into sample app. Oops. Sample app. Oops. So now I have a sample project, and if I run it and build it, so if I open this project here on this current directory, so I can do cursor here, open a brand new window for this project. I'll close the other one. And can open up my pubspec, run to get the packages. Now, the next step I'm going to do after I had created the sample project is that I'm going to commit and then push this code to my Azure DevOps project in the repository specified here. So I'm going to come here, go to the Git portion, initialize it as a project, add everything to the project, make sure that this has the git ignore set up. And then I'm going to say this is my initial app. I'm going to commit it. Now I'm going to publish this branch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be pushing this up to my DevOps Azure repository. Since Cursor most of the time is configured to cooperate with like GitHub, what I'm going to be doing instead is I'm going to use the command line to configure my remote. So I'm going to open up the terminal on the bottom side by clicking on this button here. And then I'm going to type git remote -v, which is going to show me all my remotes defined. And since there are none, nothing shows up. So say git remote add origin, and I'm going to specify the project here. So I'm going to copy this URL here. Well, I'm just going to copy right here. So now I specified the git remote. And now if I say git push origin main, it will push it to this repository. Now, when I refresh this page, now it shows me this project that I have here. And what you also will see that is besides the files that were added by the Flutter tool for a brand new project, I added another file in here called Azure Pipelines YAML. And this is the file that I need to set up this project for continuous integration. If I open this file, you'll see that I have some just kind of boilerplate kind of settings to help me set up this so that it will then build on the pipeline. One thing to keep in mind here, what's going on is that here I'm specifying that I'm using from the Azure machine pools to use a online VM image for the builds. So this one has a certain number of free minutes, and if you exceed those free minutes, then you will get errors whenever you try to build. So there are other ways to configure this to use a locally on-prem machine. I will show that in a future video, but for now we're going to use the Ubuntu online VM images. Yeah, the next part we're going to do is now that we've pushed our initial version of our Flutter app to the Azure DevOps repository, I'm going to set up the pipeline. So I click on this pipeline menu item here, and here I'm going to say create my first pipeline. And I'm going to then specify a YAML. Okay, and I'm going to specify the repository. And I will also say I'm going to use an existing Azure pipeline YAML file. And I will specify the name of the file, which is here, and press continue. Okay. So now, this is now, we can save this. There haven't been any runs yet. So the way that we can run it is you can click here, say run a pipeline, and then start the run. Okay, now that we've pushed the content to the Azure DevOps pipeline into the repo, then the first thing we need to do is we set up the pipeline, and after we created the pipeline, we pointed to our own Azure. We pointed to our own Azure pipeline YAML, and then whenever we do a push, it will cause the pipeline to start running. And the first time I ran it, there was actually a problem with it because it was looking for some variables that need to be defined in Azure DevOps. But because I'm not using them at this current time, I decided to remove them and then push the branch again. And now you can see that the Azure DevOps pipeline is now doing the build for this app. And you can see that it's gone through all these steps. And right now it's already done the pub get, which is getting all the dependencies. And then now it's doing the Android build. And then after that, it would do the web build. It would then run some tests and then start to copy some files and then deploy the artifacts into DevOps Azure. So we're just going to wait here for it to finish, and we'll come right back. So the build had finished. So I will show you what the finished build looks like. So if I go into that specific pipeline that I built, Flutter app, you can see all the previous runs that have happened. Green indicates success, red indicates a failure. So if I click on this one here, then you click on going into the specific build that occurred. You can see all the specific steps that occurred and that it finished correctly. And you can sort of see at the very the very end, it finalizes the job and notifies the pipeline that it ran successfully. So a couple of things to keep in mind here. One thing, okay, if you look at what exactly ran here, you will see that there's actually a lot of these commands are built in to Azure DevOps, but there's a couple of commands that are unique and specific for DevOps that is not defined. So when you try to when you try to run a task like this one here, when it's called Flutter install, and if you look at the specific file that's part of that here, so if I go to Azure Pipelines and then look for that specific task here, so if I look right here, sorry, at above, Flutter install. So this is part of a widget that's made for Azure DevOps. And when you first try to run it, it will say that it needs to have it installed. So it will then prompt you to install the tool for this plugin for DevOps. There are other specific things in here that as well are predefined and defined for DevOps Azure that doesn't require a special install. So like, for example, this uh, node install, that's all part of Azure DevOps. Another part that I want to make sure I cover, which is when I pushed the code up from my command line first time into DevOps, Azure DevOps into the repository, my machine already had the credentials saved on my local machine to connect to my Azure DevOps environment. So when I first did my first git pull, sorry, when I did my first git push origin main here, the first time I tried to actually push content, um, this would have failed for you maybe the first time if you didn't have your Git credentials saved in your machine. So you might be prompted for the first time that you tried to push content into your Azure DevOps. Right? So that's it for now, and we'll see you the next time.